all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Welcome to Veterans Radio. I am Jim Fossone. I'm the officer of the deck today. We've got some great programs for you. I think you'll find very interesting. We always want to remind you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or by going to veteransradio.net, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.net. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We also want to thank Eisenhower Center. It's a brain injury recovery center. Learn more about eisenhowercenter.com. They're located in Michigan and in Florida. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. We want to thank Vet Biz Central, which is part of the U.S. Small Business Association, VBOC, Vet Business Outreach Centers. Vet Biz Central covers Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, and can be reached at vetbizcentral.org. Let's move on to our programs. We want to welcome back to Veterans Radio Craig Grossi. Craig is a Marine. He's written a couple of books, and we're glad to have him back in Veterans Radio. Craig, welcome back.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me back, Jim. It's great to be back. Well,
let me remind folks that it was back in the fall of 2017, which in this pandemic environment seems like a lifetime ago. We had a chance to talk about a book that you recently wrote called Craig and Fred. And give us a thumbnail of what Craig and Fred was about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess it's kind of the story of, to boil it down into super simplistic terms, it's the story of how and where I got my first dog. It's a really unlikely kind of circumstances that led me to connecting with a stray dog in Afghanistan, and not just in Afghanistan, but in one of the most contested and violent areas of the country. Back in 2010, it was an area called Sangin in Helmand Province, and I was an intelligence collector assigned to support reconnaissance Marines on the front line of a really volatile fight in Sangin. And I was expecting a lot of things during that mission. And one of them was not to encounter a really just overwhelmingly funny and compassionate and stubbornly positive dog that seemingly was just kind of waiting for us. And so it's this kind of the story about how we all, myself and my fellow Marines, all fell in love with him, and how he fought and patrolled kind of alongside of us for over 30 days. And then how I snuck him out of the battlefield and then eventually out of the country to my family back home in the Washington, D.C. area. And then it's really just also the story of after Afghanistan and how Fred and how so many dogs often do, rescued me right back.
And that's really part of the story, and that's why in 2018 I told our Veteran Radio listeners that Craig and Fred was, quote, one of the best reads of the year, close quote.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it captured so much. It captured this, sort of funny story about, as you say, a stubborn dog in Afghanistan who wouldn't go away, but was smart enough to be with the Marines and not draw any attention to them when they were out on patrol. The story of you smuggling it out of Afghanistan against all the orders and general requirements is pretty funny how that all happens. So it was a great read, but it also, more importantly, talked about your road trip and the value of a dog and sort of the road trip across the country to deal with the issues of TBI and PTSD and just readjusting to civilian life. And I found that part of the book really insightful, and I actually gave the book to a lot of moms whose sons were coming back, and they were having a tough time relating to him because they couldn't relate to where he was or what he was doing, and why do you get a German Shepherd, and why do you buy a motorcycle, and what the hell is he doing? And I think your book really helped people understand sort of that coming home aspect of it. I don't know if you wrote it for that purpose, but it had that purpose.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I'm so glad that you shared that with families, and thank you for that. And what you just described is something that I saw since the publication of Craig and Fred again and again is people taking lessons and taking things from that story and from that book that they needed. And it's certainly not something that I had any intention of putting in there was any kind of guide for a family member or a mother or a veteran or somebody, to use as an example or as a way to relate to somebody's transition or somebody's struggles. It's just what happens when we share our stories. We see each other we relate to each other through our stories. And that was my only goal with Craig and Fred, was to get that story out there because it was burning inside me, and I wanted to share it as authentically and as often as possible. And what's happened since has been incredible, because for some it is about, the transition process and about coming home and all of that. But to others, it's about trust or love or both, or sticking to your guts, and pursuing something, and it's about so many different things. And I've heard it all, in our travels and in our speaking engagements all over the country since, and it's just motivated me to really continue to write and to share.
Well, that's a good transition, because I was going to ask you, how does a jarhead think he's got a second book in him?
Hey, you just got to sharpen the crayons, man.
Exactly. Don't eat them.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get to Second Chances, which talks about your work and Fred's work, if you will, at a prison in Maine. But I wanted to set this up for folks who, maybe haven't thought about it. The U.S. Department of Justice has a report out that indicates about 8% of all inmates in state and federal prison and local jails are veterans. Now, that's far in excess of how many, the percentage of people who serve in the military. So you have to kind of ask yourself a little bit about why we have so many veterans in prisons and jails. And we'll come back to that at the end, maybe a little bit, to talk philosophy if we have a chance. But that's kind of the setup, if you will, because you got asked, you live in Maine, and you got asked to come to the Maine State prison to talk. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah. So it was just kind of a natural opportunity that came through the promotion of Craig and Fred, and of just, doing what I love to do, which is telling the story of Fred And I did a radio show here in Maine, and the host said, "Hey, you should really think about going up and seeing some of the things that are going on up at Maine State Prison. The warden is an Iraq War veteran. He's this incredible guy, and I'll connect you with him." And so she connected me with his name is Randy Liberty, and he was the warden at the time. And he's one of the greatest names I've ever heard in my life, Randy Liberty. And I think within a week or two, I found myself driving up with Fred through the prison to talk to the staff a little bit, and then to go into an area that he had designated a whole cell block. They call them pods, but he had designated a whole pod just for veterans, just for inmates who had served in the military. And he specifically wanted me to go and speak to the men of the veterans pod. And so, I went up with Fred and something even before I went behind the wall and behind the wire, to meet the men, something really about the culture, at Maine State Prison really struck me. And I realized very quickly that it was no accident that Fred and I were there, and that there was something there for me to really explore. I didn't know what it was at the time, but after that first visit, I just continuously just tried to find reasons and just to spend time up there. And so I ended up creating a writing program, a weekly writing program to kind of get myself up there and get in the door and spend more time with the men of Maine State Prison.
What did you find, Craig, about it that kept pulling you back into that environment to meet with these guys?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of things. I think mostly it really says a lot about the culture that a good leadership can create. And Randy is a really great example of that, of having the right attitude and having the right people around him. And it's, it can be a real kind of trickle down effect when you have somebody that in charge that really cares and really engages and really takes the time, with his staff and with the men, the inmates. It really, I think, just seeing that and seeing that he loved what he did and does was a beautiful thing to see. And I think I'm always drawn to people and that are really doing something that they love or that they really feel a calling for. And Randy and the rest of his staff are really an example of that. And so I think that initially it was what kind of drew me in, because it felt similar to being in a unit in the military, to thinking back to my deployment to Afghanistan. Like, I'm still so connected to the men that I served with over there, because we all shared this mission and this place. And it felt kind of that similar kind of feeling, that I just wanted to be near. So that was part of it for sure.
And it sounds like you quickly realized that there was an opportunity to have an impact on people's lives.
Yeah, I wanted that. That's something I think I've been looking for ever since leaving the military, is just being able to make an impact. And I think that's something that a lot of veterans try to find upon leaving as well. It's just an opportunity in a way to make an impact, either on other people's lives or upon an industry or something to that regard, something that really has a legacy to it. And yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. And I felt a connection to the men. I felt the connection to the inmates, and just through how honest they were with me and how connected, I felt I was to them just through that honesty.
Well, let me ask you, you set up a writing program, and we've certainly in the past talked to folks who have found that writing programs are very beneficial for veterans, folks who may have mental health issues, who need to get things off their chest, just sort of a way to express themselves safely. What were you trying to accomplish in the writing program?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it was, I had seen what writing had and has done for me through the writing process of my first book of Craig and Fred. I was able to really see the trajectory of my life and the things that, and be essentially be grateful for the good and the bad, almost equally, and just little things and big things like that didn't go right. The jobs I didn't get, the deployments I didn't get, all kind of led me to that specific time and place in Afghanistan with the recon Marines and then eventually to Fred, and so I was really able to kind of appreciate everything about my life that had led me to that point, to meeting this dog. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if it hadn't been for the writing process. And so I hope that I could kind of give the men of Maine State Prison something similar through writing. And just an opportunity to kind of review and reflect on the trajectory that their lives had taken and hopefully, come away with some gratitude and with some understanding.
And as that process evolved and the writing workshop continued for some time, did you see that kind of impact or that impact on some of the guys?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think almost instantly. Some of them, took a little more time than others to kind of warm up, but most of them jumped right in and were never shied away from, really exploring themselves and their experiences through writing. And it really inspired the ones that maybe were a little bit hesitant, to kind of jump in a little bit more and really dig deep. And it was really informal. I didn't want it for a second to feel like I was worried about punctuation or grammar or anything like that. It was really, some of the guys wrote songs, some of them wrote poems, some of them, wrote, more traditionally just kind of a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And then some of them would share orally, just a story about, that they had like thought about for the week leading up to it. And so it was really beautiful to see. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about with Second Chances is I share a lot of their writing in the book. So it gets to, get out there and people can read it for themselves and almost feel like they're in that room with me and Fred, with these men.
Well, in the book is Second Chances, a Marine, his dog, and finding redemption. And I want to bring in another program that Maine State Prison stood up, and that's the service dog program. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, of course. That was another thing that really kind of drew me in, was the fact that they had these dogs up there that from Americans Vet Dogs, which is an incredible nonprofit, and they train some of the best service dogs that you can ask for. Just very, very professionally run, and the dogs come out, capable of absolutely incredible things. For everything from, waking up from a nightmare to, bringing someone a pill bottle, gently and placing it in a specific place, based on the needs of that person. I mean, it's an incredible thing to see. And I didn't really appreciate the amount of patience, compassion, dedication, and just drive that it takes to train a dog like that, to do those things. And then to see firsthand men convicted of, in some cases, some pretty horrible crimes, demonstrating all of those things for the benefit of someone that they will probably never meet, was an amazing thing. And America's Vet Dogs was really, really great to allow me to kind of be a fly on the wall throughout the training process of a couple of dogs that I follow throughout the book. And so, yeah, that's another thing that the reader gets to kind of kind of see is that process just in general, and that the men of Maine State Prison are capable of being a huge part of that process.
As I said at the beginning, there's according to the Department of Justice, there's about 180, 200,000 veterans who are incarcerated. And most of us never get a chance to meet them or even for that matter, think about them and how they got to where they're at. And I'm kind of curious, as you had this opportunity first just to talk to staff, but then it evolved into this really working with the men, both in writing shops and watching the service dog things. How did your view evolve of those who were incarcerated?
Yeah, I mean, it evolved immensely, and it really has. I mean, because especially considering who my kind of view of things in my early 20s, when I first joined the Marines at 19, my first 4 years were spent working as a brig guard, as a military prison guard.
Oh, and I didn't know that from talking to you before.
Yeah, right. I write about that a lot, I write about that in the book, and so that's something that the reader will really see is my evolution on this issue throughout my life, because Lance Corporal Grossi thought that those people behind bars got exactly what they deserved, and that they were supposed to think about what they did every day, and that they were supposed to be reminded every day of the fact that they fell short and that they were criminals, and that's how I started my journey with this, and at an early, relatively early age. And, and I think that that's a view that a lot of people are very comfortable with, because it allows us to kind of dismiss people who are in our criminal justice system. But I've seen firsthand, and I've evolved since having that kind of very rigid crime and punishment view, that it's really not doing anybody any favors, not the people behind bars, and not the rest of us out in the world, because essentially we're turning our backs on people who are just a zip code and a couple paychecks away from us. And it's time that we really evaluate, just as a country and as a culture, how we treat people who have spent time in jails and prisons.
And we're talking to Craig Grossi, Marine and author. I'm sure in high school they never thought they'd put those two words together behind your name.
No way.
But that's really the point of your, if you will, of the title of the book, the message in the book, if you will, is second chances. Tell us the message that you're communicating there, and give us some insights.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's really the title is purposeful, because it's something that I've personally kind of seen through evaluating my own life, just mentally, and also through the writing process, is how many second chances I've had, and how much luck has been involved in that. Because the many of those second chances have come as a result of things that were not in my control. Things like the zip code I was born into, the family, that I was born into, and the school system that I grew up in, and the color of my skin, to be completely transparent, and that there's nothing saying that I don't deserve the things that have come to me through hard work and things like that. But it doesn't make it doesn't take away from those things to recognize the privilege and the luck involved in the second chances that I've received. And that's something that I really kind of explore with the reader and with the men of Maine State Prison. And it's my hope that we can all kind of do that together, and really think back on our lives and the second chances that we've had, and that we can kind of come together and really see that will be kind of the part of where we can start to look differently at the people who haven't been as lucky as who have spent time in prison and jail as a result.
Yeah, I think this is a great book, a good read that allows you to stop a little bit and pause in your own life and reflect a little bit about your second chances, and maybe you need to be a little more forgiving and give other people second chances because they were so important to you. I think that's part of the message that I got out, and hopefully that was part of the message you were trying to give.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'm glad that came through. Thank you.
Before we run out of time, because at this point, folks who are not familiar with Fred are thinking, I got to go read Craig and Fred, and then I got to read Second Chances, and they're dying to know how Fred's doing, and I'm sure they're also wondering, this must be a purebred dog. So tell us a little bit about Fred.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to tell, but first of all, he's doing great. He is presently in the office with me on a comfy leather sofa, snoring happily. There's the sun coming through our windows, and he's taking his afternoon nap after we just went for a little walk around our house and up here in Maine. And just health-wise, he couldn't be healthier. He's still a handful. He's still a very stubborn little guy, and he wants to be outside all day. And if he doesn't get his walks and his hikes and his adventures in throughout the day, then he lets me know at night that he's still got plenty of energy left in the tank. So he's doing great. And if you get a good look at him, you can tell that he is certainly a unique dog, but his gene pool is very deep. He's got a very deep gene pool, and as a result of just the lifestyle that his ancestors had led. And so he's got these little legs that he makes the absolute most out of. But he's got a big chest, almost like a shepherd, or almost like a German shepherd kind of chest, and the long kind of hound body, and he's got a set of lungs on him. That's for sure. He can get real loud. If he was as big as he is loud, he'd be the size of a horse.
Well, it's good to hear that Fred's doing so well, and that you're doing so well, Craig. If folks want to track what you're doing and keep an eye on that and find where to buy these books, give them a couple of websites to look at.
Yeah, of course. So our Fred's website is fredtheafghan.com, and we've got lots of pictures and videos of our travels, and we actually have Fred merchandise, hats and T-shirts and dog collars and leashes and harnesses that we sell, and we donate a portion of proceeds to a different charity every month from the sale of that. And then on social media, it's all Fred the Afghan on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and he's got a real enthusiastic following of people all over the world that love Fred, and they love to see what he's up to. So we're easy to find.
And the book Second Chances is now available for purchase, and I'm sure you can find it online at all of your favorite online purchasers. And if you can go into an independent bookstore, I'm sure they can get it for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's available just about anywhere you can get a book. It'll be there.
Well, we want to thank you, Craig Grossi, for taking a little time today to talk to Veterans Radio, bring us up to speed, and give us something new to think about, and that is second chances, in particular for those veterans and others who have found themselves incarcerated.
Absolutely. Oh, it was a privilege to be back with you, Jim. I thank you very much for the opportunity.
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Faussone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by going to veteransradio.net. And until next time, you are dismissed.
If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans' Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800.
We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, nvbdc.org, the U.S. Small Business Administration Veterans Business Outreach Center, Eisenhower Center, VA Ann Arbor Health Care System, the Vietnam Veterans of America Charles S. Kettles Chapter, Ann Arbor, Michigan, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423 in Ann Arbor, and the American Legion Presscorn Post 46, also in Ann Arbor. They keep us on the air, as does your support. Go to Facebook, go to veteransradio.net, and support our efforts. And until next time, you are dismissed.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.